This week's parasha Terumah, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, it's time to go and collect donations. We're going to build a Mishkan. We're going to build a home for Hashem. Basuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham. We're going to build a dwelling place, so to speak, down below, so Hashem will dwell amongst all of us. Big stuff happening. So I heard an unbelievable philosophical, theological shiur from Rabbi Ziering about the kruvim and really about the space where Hashem speaks to us, mibein kruvim, from between the kruvim. So I wanted to share it because I thought it was like very cool ideas that put the Mishkan in a bigger theological idea. Okay, so says God. God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, tell the Jewish people, Va'asita shenayim keruvim zahav mikshet taseotam. God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, go and make two kruvim. We spoke about the kruvim in the past at length, but the kruvim were these two golden images of like children, angels that were made of gold, and they were placed on top of the kaporet. It says the kaporet is the lid of the aron. Okay, let's go to the Mishkan. The Mishkan is made up of different sections. The most holy part is the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies. That's where the Kohen Gadol would go in on Yom Kippur. Holiest place, Holy of Holies. What's in the Holy of Holies? We have ourselves the Aron. We have the Ark that housed the Shnei Luchot HaBrit, that housed the two tablets that we learned about at the end of last week's parasha, the 10 Commandments. So we have ourselves the Aron, holds the Luchot, and then the Aron is covered by the Kaporet. We have the lid, and on the lid we have these two kruvim, the Shnaim Keruvim, that are right on top. And then Hashem says that once we build it, we do it all right. And then Hashem says, "V'no'anti lecha sham v'dibarti techa ma'al hakaporet mibein shnei keruvim." And then God says, "I'll meet you there and I'll speak to you." And how is God going to speak to us? Mibein shnei keruvim, from that spot in between the two angels, and that's where God will speak to us. Okay, so Rabbi Ziering quotes Aviva Zornberg, who explains, okay, what's going on over here? If we go according to the approach of Rashi, that the whole idea of the Mishkan was to be a kapara, would be an atonement for the Chet HaEgel. So what was the Chet HaEgel? We had just sinned with Avodah Zarah, with all the gold of the Avodah Zarah, and now God is collecting all of this gold as a kind of way to make a tikkun, try to fix it, and maybe do things right. And we spoke in the past about the different connections between the Egel and the Kruvim, and so here's another idea. What is God trying to teach us? Okay, so in your average Avodah Zarah temple, for those that are going to go to visit idols in a temple, what takes place in a temple? So you find yourself the holiest part of this Avodah Zarah temple, and right there in the middle, you're going to have the idol. And there'll probably be one single idol that represents the idol of that temple, because each temple will have their own idol. Actually, when I went on the Kotel tunnel tours one year, so the tour guide said to us that the reason why Shlomo Melech's temple was so great is for the Jewish people, we only had one God. So we put all of our money and all of our stuff into making one beautiful, beautiful place. But if you go to other countries where they have different temples, from that period of time, they all were smaller because each temple was dedicated to a different idol. So you had to spread your wealth around. You couldn't put it all in one place. But we're monotheistic. We have only Hashem. So we actually made ours much grander than most other areas. Okay, fine. But so if you look at our Beit HaMikdash, what would happen in our temple? So says Rabbeinu Bahaye, an interesting idea. He says, he asked the question, he says, why does the pasuk say that the kruvim were shnayim keruvim? There were two kruvim. Wouldn't it make more sense to say the word that they were shnei kruvim? You know, like the shnei luchot habrit. Normally when you say two of something, you say shnei kruvim, and actually later on in the Torah, they're going to be called shnei kruvim. Why over here, the first time we're introduced to the kruvim, does it say shnayim kruvim? So he explains, Shnei Kruvim, it's like two parts of one. Like we have the two tablets are part of a bigger idea of the 10 Commandments. So here, God is trying to make a statement to us that they are Shnaim. They are two distinct, separate kruvim, even though eventually they're going to be one piece of gold all connected. But right now, when we're first being introduced, it's shnayim kruvim. It's two distinct ones. And Rabbeinu Bachai goes at length to explain one is male, one is female, and he explains a long idea based on the Midrashim about what that means, the Zachar and Nekeva, and how they're different. But says this, Aviva Zornberg takes it in a different angle. She goes, okay, why is it two? To having two distinct kruvim is giving us a different statement. Because what's going on? If we just sinned with the idol of the Egel HaZahav, now we have to try to get away from that to the fact that idols are nothing, and it's all about the one God that's above space, above matter. We have to get to Hashem. How do we get to that? So she says that when you walk into the Holy of Holies, what do you see? You see two kruvim, two distinct, separate kruvim. And what are those kruvim doing? They're looking down. They're looking down at the spot, at the void that's between the kaport and them. They're looking at the empty space, the negative space inside the Holy of Holies. And that's the spot, Mibein HaKruvim, that God is going to speak to us. So what are they looking down at? What does the Kohen Gadol see when he walks to the Holy of Holies? He sees these two idol-like images looking at the nothingness, and the nothingness is symbolizing God. Because the idols are saying, it's not us, we are nothing, we are zero. Where is everything? Everything is in God, and God is represented by that spot in the middle that we can't see, because Hashem is above everything. And here is where Rabbi Zirin gets deep, because he says, okay, so this is going to explain to us the big theological idea of how can we build a home for God? How can we bring a physical space for Hashem? Hashem is above space and time. So you can't have God physically anywhere, because God's above physical. So what does the Mishkan do? What is the Holy of Holies? What is one? And we see this in a couple of other places in the Mishkan as well. But in our topic, what does the Mishkan do to show us that God is above everything? The Mishkan uses the negative space. It uses the void. It uses that hole in between to represent where Hashem is. And he brings down that the Rambam, Maimonides, as well as the Mekubalim, the holy Kabbalists, they focus a lot on the number 0, on the nothingness. That's really, really important for Jewish theology. Because as opposed to like the Greeks that believe the world was always here and something always came from something and there's only physical, and the physical is what's infinite, we say no. The world was created, yesh ma'ayin, something from nothingness. There's a point before this physical world. And that point right before is represented by 0. It's represented by nothing, because 0, the nothingness, corresponds to infinity, the everything. A minute before the something of our world was created, the yesh was created, we had ayin, we had nothing. But that nothingness really symbolizes infinity, Hashem, which is everything. So the cool idea here is just like we see in the Rambam and the Mekubalim when they're discussing about the creation of the world, and when the world is created something from nothing. I mean, I know we spoke about in previous years that the Mishkan relates to the creation of the world as well, in the inverse. But for our perspective now, that's the same thing. The holiest place in the world, the Mishkan, in the Holy of Holies, the main place we want to look at is the place of the nothingness, of the void, of the 0. That's what Kruvim are looking down on, and it's that spot where we have the infinity. It's that spot where Hashem will speak to us, Mibein HaKruvim. Shabbat Shalom.